Hey there. Welcome to Dead End Street. I'm Al. We are continuing with our top 25 albums of the year series. We are up to the year 1987, which is an interesting year. Not one of the strongest years of the decade, but there's some really good stuff in there. So let's take a look. So I'm going to start off by prefacing that since we don't really count compilations and live albums, since the Smiths' Louder Than Bombs is a compilation album, technically. Um, I haven't counted it. If I did, it would have been pretty high up there. So let's start with number 25. Number 25 is going to be Midnight to Midnight by the Psychedelic Furs. So um, Richard Butler, frontman of Psychedelic Furs, once called this record vapid. It's totally vapid, but even a vapid Psychedelic Furs album is still good. It reeks of 80s, cheesy 80s production, but honestly, I don't care. There's still some really good songs in there. Number 24 is going to be Pet Shop Boys with Actually. Um, so though this is not as solid as the debut album, it still delivers with a much bigger sound and a more commercial appeal. Some special guests, obviously, Dusty Springfield on What Have I Done to Deserve This? And It's a Sin is, pretty massive song. Number 23 is going to be Happy by Public Image Limited. So Lydon finally settles on a stable lineup. He enlists Lou Edmonds on guitar, Alan Diaz on bass, Bruce Smith, most known for his work with Pop Group, on drums, and of course, Mr. John McGeoch on guitar. This is a much different sounding Public Image, but it does usher in a new brand of songwriting that extends the life of the group for a couple more years. Save Me and Fat Chance Hotel, I think, are both killer tracks. Number 22 is going to be Dinosaur Jr. with You're Living All Over Me. This contains a lot of Jay Mascis's best riffs. There's a lot of sludge on here. There's some good power pop, and a whole lot of guitar effects. A lot of fun. Number 21 is going to be Spear of Destiny with Outland. So Kirk Brandon, for me, has one of those voices that just sounds great pretty much no matter what he's doing. And he's still great live. I just saw him, I guess, a year ago with Theater of Hate, and his voice is still top notch. But this record, as far as Spear of Destiny is concerned, is a lot more slick than the other Spear records. But it's still a very solid effort. My two favorite songs on there are The Traveler and Never Take Me Alive. Number 20 is going to be Sister by Sonic Youth. So here, Sonic Youth continues to steer away from their more noisy earlier records to a more guitar-driven sound rather than just a lot of atmospherics. However, not conventional guitar, mind you. This is Sonic Youth. They are using a variety. They are still using a variety of interesting tunings and song structures. And it does, however, contain my favorite Sonic Youth track of all time. It's Schizophrenia. It's just, to me, their best song. Number 19 is going to be Thin White Rope with Moonhead. This is such a weird, enticing, indescribable record. I don't know. It maybe Fields of the Nephilim meets Tom Waits in the desert. I don't know. But I do know that the older I get, I find it more and more interesting. Um, but check out the track Wet Heart. It's not of this world. It's very cool stuff. Number 18 is going to be Sonic Sunspot by Dukes of the Stratosphere, aka XTC. So this is the second time that XTC is using their alias to indulge in more of their love of 60s pop and psychedelia. And when they, both of you, it just sounds like they're having a blast making it. It's totally derivative, but it's fun. It's, you know, has touches of Beatles, the Zombies, Sid's Floyd, and it really truly sounds like a 60s record. I don't know what equipment they used on making this album, but it's masterful. Sounds totally like 1968. Number 17 is going to be All Fool's Day by the Saints. This record is just evidence of just how good of a songwriter Chris Bailey was. It really does run the gamut of emotions. I mean, See You in Paradise, Love or Imagination, and the classic Just Like Firewood are all representative of the songwriting genius contained within this record. And it all sounds great courtesy of producer extraordinaire Hugh Jones. Number 16 is going to be Thunder Up by The Sound. So this is the final studio record by Adrian Borland and The Sound. It also did not sell, just like the other Sound records. I'll never understand this, but this is a very moving record. Some of their best, I think some of their best songs are contained on this album, like Barria Alta, I Give You Pain, and You've Got Away. Number 15 is going to be Mercy by former Sex Pistols guitarist Steve Jones. So on his first solo record, Steve Jones is newly sober and puts forth a surprisingly melancholic and melodic record, which who would have figured, right? The title track for me, I think, is just easily one of the best tracks of the year. And the rest of the record ranges from hard rock to mournful. But it's a very good record if you haven't checked it out. Number 14 is The Lion and the Cobra by Sinead O'Connor. So this is Sinead's debut. It's pretty impressive for a debut record. The first track that she presents to the world is Jackie, which, I mean, what an introduction. It's just this haunting, just chugging guitar with just vocals. And it sends chills up and down your spine. Number 13 is going to be Secrets of the Beehive by David Sylvan. So, David Sylvan, the former frontman of the great late 70s, early 80s synth pop, art rock band Japan, enlists the brilliant Ryuichi Sakamoto for what is a really beautiful and sophisticated record that would lay down basically the foundation for the rest of his solo career. Number 12 is Poem of the River by Felt. In my opinion, I mean, I always say this about a lot of bands, but Felt should have been bigger. Honestly, I just can't imagine what radio stations in the 80s would have done with a jangle pop group soaked in organs. Where would they have fit in a radio station back then? I just don't know. But nonetheless, Lawrence, the frontman and songwriter of the group, songwriting is just truly top notch. During this whole period, it felt that mid 80s area. Stained glass windows in the sky just has some of the most wonderful guitar playing and chord progressions. Very short record, but a very good record nonetheless. Number 11 is Pleased to Meet Me by The Replacements. A lot of Replacements fans kind of consider this one to be their sellout record. I don't even know what that means, but so I mean, I guess they suppose they should have just kept recording Sorry Ma, forgot to take out the trash like 20 times. I mean, they already have to progress, or else there's no point in doing it. Anyway, this is a great rock and roll record. Alex Chilton, Can't Hardly Wait, and one of my favorite replacements tracks, The Ledge, are all highlights on an album full of highlights. Number 10 is going to be the self-titled album by Ekko and the Bunnymen. This is probably the Bunnymen's most accessible record of the original run of the band. And it may not be as daring as, say, the first four records, but there are some great moments on this album. And if you're a guitarist, don't tell me you didn't try to attempt to learn the solo to Lips Like Sugar. It's such a great solo. Number 9 is going to be Earth, Sun, Moon by Love and Rockets. So Love and Rockets add a touch of folk and acoustic guitars to their glam rock, psych rock palette. And I got that works beautifully. If you want to hear more about, what I think of Love and Rockets and this album in general, check out our Love and Rockets album ranking. I'll put a link in the description for that for you. Number 8 is Music for the Masses by Depeche Mode. So this record falls right in that sweet spot in between Black Celebration and Violator. It sounds huge, especially for 1987, and it contains like 4 Depeche Mode live staples that they perform every night to this day: Never Let Me Down, Behind the Wheel, Strange Love, Little 15. How many we hear every single night. Number 7 is going to be Electric by The Cult. The Cult made their follow-up to the successful previous record called Love, and this decided to scrap it and start all over. So in doing so, they hired producer Rick Rubin, who turned off all the chorus and delay on their guitars, and turned it up to 10 and plugged directly into the Marshall. Electric is, to me, one of the best hard rock records of the 80s. And it was written by a post-punk band, essentially. The lead-off track, Wildflower, is basically, to me, T-Rex on steroids. Aphrodisiac Jacket is Cream on steroids. I got this record when I was in 7th grade. And it really opened up my eyes to a different, other kinds of modern music besides metal. I think it's safe to say the Cult were one of my gateway drugs. And I owe a great deal to the Cult and to this record for that alone. Number 6 is Through the Looking Glass by Susie and the Banshees. The Banshees did a cover album, and probably my favorite cover album of all time. So, they do covers of Sparks, Roxy Music, John Cale, Iggy Pop, The Band, Billie Holiday, Television, and they're all great covers. And they give them all the Banshees treatment. When they're done with these songs, they sound nothing like, very little like the originals, or at least gives it that Banshee sound. But I do have to say that their cover of Kraftwerk's Hall of Mirrors and their cover of Trust in Me from Disney's The Jungle Book, of all things, are just friggin' incredible. It's just, they are probably the 2 of the greatest covers I've ever heard. Number 5 is going to be The Ideal Copy by Wire. Wire, one of the first and most influential post-punk bands of the late 70s, stopped in 79, at least put out their last album before this in 1979. I think they finally went on hiatus in 80. So, they did groundbreaking and pioneering stuff then. They take 8 years off and come back, and they're just as groundbreaking. This record is nothing short of genius, in my opinion. The Point of Collapse and Madman's Honey are 2, I think, of Wire's best songs of all time. Number 4 is going to be Darkland. The second Jesus and Mary Chain album turns down the noise a bit to kind of put the Psycho Candy era behind them and focuses a bit more on the songwriting. Um, and it's a rousing success because I think, I mean, this album is a classic. Every track is a standout. There is no filler. The title track, Happy When It Rains, April Skies, just they're just the singles, and the rest of the album is just as good. Also, if you are into Jesus and Mary Chain, we did an album ranking on them also. I'll put the link in the description for that also. Number 3 is going to be Diminuendo by Low Life. This is the second album by this Scottish group. To me, it's musically beautiful. It's vocally mysterious, and these songs to me are just kind of otherworldly. Singer Craig Lorenzen is a very charismatic frontman. Will Heggie, the original bass player and founding member of Cocteau Twins, is the bass player. And I must say that his bass playing is the driving force of the music, while guitarist Stuart Everest um, is using the guitar more like a paintbrush rather than a hammer. Um, this is another group that the mainstream basically completely whiffed on. But every single song on this track is a bang on this album is a banger. But I do have to say that if I wanted someone to check out Low Life for the first time, the opening track on this album would be the perfect introduction. It's called Sullen Sky. I mean, if you haven't heard Low Life, please check them out and check out the album before this one also, Permanent Sleep. So that brings us to the top 2, where number 2 is going to be Strange Ways Here We Come by the Smiths. This was the final Smiths record, and the fact that this is this final Smiths record is a little bit of a gut punch. Not because it's not excellent, but because it leaves you wondering what could have been. Um, they were just getting started, really. They were only 4 years in, 5 years in. Um, Morrissey and Marr both believe that this is their best record. That's their opinion. Um, it's probably the only thing they agree on. But I'm not so sure. I mean, I love the album. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's the best one, but um, I mean, my God, it's still a super special album. A Rush and a Push. I started something I couldn't finish. Um, Girlfriend in a Coma. And one of my all-time favorites is Stop Me, if you think you've heard this one before. Oh, and those songs are just side one. So that leads us to the number 1 record of 1987. And wouldn't you know it, The Cure have finally made it to number 1. So the number 1 album for 1987 is Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me by The Cure. I bought this record in the summer of 1988 between 8th and 9th grades. It was a summer I had moved to a new neighborhood. I was going to start at a new school, and this record was like my best friend for that stretch of months there. I didn't dive head first into like alt rock or college rock or anything like that after this. I still kind of hung around like the mainstream rock thing for a little while. But I do have to say that this record was the ultimate catalyst for me. Now, I know most people associate this record with Just Like Heaven or Why Can't I Be You or Hot Hot Hot. But the real standouts on this record are not the singles. For me, it would be only Tonight We Could Sleep, All I Want, One More Time, How Beautiful You Are. I mean, it's a sprawling 2-record set, and there's not any filler. I mean, it's very rare where you can have one of those double albums where you can put it on and listen to it straight through. It's not as cohesive as like previous Cure records where Robert kind of sets a mood at the beginning and kind of sees it through to the end. This one's a little bit all over the place. I mean, you have like pop and punk and folk and like shoegazy stuff, world stuff, on top of just great pop stuff. Um, it's still like a great listen straight through though. Um, and it's a very important record in my life, and I still love it. So there we have it. That is the #1 album of 1987 for me. Just want to give a quick mention to some of the albums I just missed. Um, Daddy's Highway by the Bats, George Best by Wedding Present, Joshua Tree by U2, um, Document REM, St. Julian by Julian Cope. What else? Floodland by Sisters of Mercy. Yes, I left it off. Um, and Tallulah by the Go-Betweens, Mother of Juno by Gun Club, and Warehouse by Husker Du. There we go. That's 1987 in a nutshell. Um, we're going to be working on 1988. We got a couple of album rankings coming up. I'm going to do The Cure. We're going to be doing Psychedelic Furs soon. And also, I was going to wait till we finished up with the 80s to start. We started with 1979 and started moving forward. So the original plan was to finish with the 80s and then go back to 78 and work my way backwards. I'm changing the plan. So just so we can open up the realm of music that we talk about on here, I'm going to continue finishing the 80s, but while we're doing that, I'm also going to start off with 1971 in the next day or so. And then we'll work our way up through the 70s at the same time while we're finishing the 80s. And we'll probably get into the 90s sometime in the spring, I'm thinking. So, all right. Well, thanks a lot. If you haven't done so already, like the video, subscribe, check the bell for notifications, and check out all of our social media. We'll have links in the description, and check out some of our other years. We have 1979 all the way up to 1987 now. So thanks a lot. See you next time on Dead End Street.